So with Pokemon Generation 10 coming out soon, you gotta ask yourself and wonder the question, is Pokemon starting to spend more and make the games actually what they should be? Now this is a question that I had a lot recently looking at other things that are happening in the realm of Pokemon. Now that the cards are pretty much extinct, that you can't pick them up or just an average consumer can't pick them up anymore. The TV shows ever since the removal of Ash doesn't seem like it's doing the greatest, and the merchandise as well, the merchandise. So let's talk all of that Pokemon, let's get straight into it. Okay, so this would be great in so many different ways, and we've already seen this sort of happen with Pokemon Generation 10. It seems like this game is actually going to look good, and the reason why I'm bringing this entire subject up in the first place is if you looked at the Super Bowl commercial. Now this might have been scary for some of you, but I guess understandable for others. Why would you be paying $20 million for a Super Bowl ad when the entire production for Pokemon Legends ZA was only 13 million? Does Pokemon just want to spend their money or throw it out the window? Because hey, we got a Super Bowl ad that didn't show anything about the next generation. It's definitely a weird situation with something like that, but my theories are Pokemon Generation 10 could be anywhere from $20 million to $32 million. Now, I could just be saying these numbers, but it seems like it's going to be like that, because if you look at the art style and how the game is looking so far, 2 years ago, this is what the game looked like. And if you look at Scarlet and Violet during the development phase, you can see that that game definitely didn't look the greatest. Now, just because you're spending more money on the game doesn't mean that the game is going to necessarily be really, really good. Look what happened to PlayStation and Concord. I believe that that game was $400 million or something like that, and it pretty much flopped and got thrown out the window. So just because a game is really expensive to make, it doesn't mean it's good. But I think this time around for Pokemon, since no one can get their hands on the TCG or they're not making it out, they might invest a little bit more in Pokemon cards and maybe the games as well. I think Pokemon Generation 10 is really looking to be one of those games. And honestly, I find it kind of impressive where you don't have to spend that much on a Pokemon game for it to be a relatively decent experience. Now, of course, it's not going to be something like your big AAA studios like Sony, Nintendo with your Mario and Zelda and stuff like that, but it still is a relatively great experience. But here we go, moving over to Generation 10 again. I think that it's definitely starting to shift into a different sort of game, because recently, or ever since probably Generation 6, I would say, Pokemon definitely hasn't been looking the greatest, or sometimes not even playing the greatest. If you look at games, for example, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, that game was rough to look at. The art style just wasn't it. Maybe you could say that Game Freak didn't invest enough to get their creative directors actually knowing what they're doing. But at the same time, you can look at games like Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. That game, I believe, was only like $9 million or something, which is a crazy thing because I thought that Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee were really great games that actually looked really nice. But then you had other games like Sword and Shield. Now, personally, I thought those games looked pretty good. Besides the trees, I mean, the trees wasn't a major complaint, but it still was something, to be honest. It seems like no matter what, the trees are going to be a complaint. So even if you're playing something like Pokemon Generation 9 and Generation 8, the trees aren't gonna look the greatest. Even Sun and Moon had some pretty wonky trees, to be honest. They looked like pixelated mess, so who knows what in the world is gonna be going on from there, but overall, I find this very interesting. I'm hoping that Pokemon could finally see the value in the games, because wow, these trees look good. If you looked at the image from Generation 10, woo, this is the greatest thing ever. I believe where they're getting most of their income is the games right now. This could easily be the Pokemon cards, because fighting at the vending machine has been a real sport. Maybe it's going to make the Olympics next time around. But we're supposedly going to be getting the 30th anniversary of Pokemon cards, which are going to bring cards like this. So honestly, these cards look really great, and hopefully we see extra prints for that. Because my golly, if everyone can get their hands on the Bulbasaur, the Charmander, the Squirtle, or even more of the starter Pokemons, this would be the greatest thing ever. So maybe Pokemon is going to be investing in something like that. But my point is, Pokemon Generation 10 is looking really, really good. And it's definitely a curious question to see if Pokemon's going to raise the boundaries of how much they're spending on the games, and maybe Generation 10 could literally be the greatest generation that we've ever seen. Maybe one of the reasons why the older generations were considered the best is because you didn't really have to spend that much for the game to actually look really, really good, and it feels like Pokemon really put the time and day into making those games really good. You had special events every so often. You had cool little shiny Pokemon events that you were able to get like a free Pokemon. The story in most games were good. Of course, I'm talking about Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. You had 16 different gyms. That you had Kanto and you had Johto, and that really mixed out really well. There was previously a leak about Pokemon Generation 10 being 14 different gyms. Now, I don't know if Pokemon decided, you know what, we're not doing that. Or maybe it's still happening, like a second error to that. So we already know the first 8 gyms, but not the Elite Four. So maybe the Elite Four, or after you beat that in one region, you go over to a different island and you compete into a tournament that gives you different gyms that you have to fight. That would be pretty cool. I think that this would be definitely a really great way to see Pokemon as a... So what are your thoughts on this? Do you think Pokemon is going to be listening to us and raising the boundary of TCG? Do you think they're already doing that? You can find more and more cards as you explore. Or do you think no? Pokemon likes to have popcorn in hand watching the Olympics play out with vending machines. And also, do you think the games are looking greater? Because to me personally, the trees look fixed, and the gameplay, or we technically don't have gameplay yet, but the sort of images that we got so far really look good. Like, this game actually looks superior to what Scarlet and Violet actually gave us. Like, 2 years ago from development cycle, you can see that the game looks like Scarlet and Violet, and I think that that right there is a really, really crazy thing to see. So who knows, maybe some more things are going to continue to evolve in that sense, and I think it's going to be great. I think Pokemon Generation 10 will be the greatest Pokemon generation. Right now we have so many things. We know that there's going to be like a whole bunch of different islands that are going to have different elements that you can pretty much go and explore. We know that there's going to be a lot of different Pokemon. We know that there's going to be like a Pokedex of 600 or maybe even 1,000. It seems like all the Pokemon are going to be there through DLC and through the base game. But the base game seems like it's going to have a Pokedex of 600 Pokemon, which is really cool. And then DLC 1's going to add probably 200, maybe 250, and DLC 2 about 200, 250 or something like that. Overall, it's looking really great. I'm really excited for Pokemon Day. I'm really excited for, honestly, TCG. I really want that Squirtle. Squirtle's cool. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a fantastic day, and see you in the next one.